Good evening, everyone. We're back again. Can't believe it. Just time absolutely flies. I don't know where all these weeks go. To be honest with you, been very, very nice to see the sun out at long last. It really does feel like spring is here. Happy days. It seemed like it's not been a bad winter, really, has it? Just seems to go on forever. Drives us crazy. I'm not one for that time of year. Although it's been crazy busy, not had much time to think about it. It's still nice to see the sun shining. I think that makes everybody feel a lot better. So yeah, this week not got too much to report, to be honest. I hope you've seen the launch of the Koi Talk podcasts over on that channel. New studio for everyone watching on YouTube, and we've also got them now live on numerous different podcasts channels. To be honest with you, if you're into listening to those while you're driving or out working, whatever it is, well worth a listen. We actually did our first episode with Jos when he was over from Holland. It's a fascinating listen or watch, depending on where you're doing it. So yeah, absolutely get involved with that one and jump over and have a watch or listen if you want, because it really, yeah, it was mind blowing for me, to be honest with you. The guy's got serious knowledge and a lot of passion for what he does. So happy days. So without further ado, we have got a fellow YouTuber in this evening. DT Koi. I don't know if you've heard of it, seen his channel. Dave is a little bit nervous, to be honest with you. Just been having a quick chat with him. I've reassured him everybody's nice and pleasant out there. Nobody's judging, and respect for him for coming on. So let's bring him in and see what he's got to say.
All right.
Evening, buddy. How you doing?
Not too bad, suppose. With weather, it's not too bad, is it? But you know, still not warm enough on a night though to take covers off for me.
Typical Yorkshireman. Where's the positivity, eh? Come on.
Oh, well, you know, everyone says this. You know, there's no wrong, is there? You just got to have the warmer night so then you can enjoy your fish more.
It's fingers crossed it keeps the sun to keep shining.
Well, when we're getting there, it's not as cold on a night.
Yeah, so your channel, DT Koi, is that right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so here's your moment, mate. Get that plug in, see if you can get some new subscribers. Are you just telling me it's mainly a vlog that you're doing?
It's mainly a blog. If I do out DIY, then I put it on there because and if I've got any issues, I put that on there. But like what I can't remember her name, the woman that were on about it last week, Freddie. All I do is I only put on what parasites they are and the way that I treat it. I don't give the recommended dosage for what my pond is, because then obviously it could put blame onto me. Whereas I only put what parasite is and what I'm going to treat with.
Yeah.
Or I just do it like I've recently bought a backy shower, or as you call them, trickle towers, that I'm putting stuff together for my YouTube channel that way.
Yeah.
And it's just, like I say, just more of a blog for me, so then I can just write, rather than writing it all down, I've got it as a video.
And just sharing your experiences in general then.
Yeah, and hopefully somebody that might look at it and might think, oh, or if I've done something wrong, they might learn something from it, and it just helps everyone out, doesn't it?
Yeah, fantastic. So, what questions have you got lined up?
Well, I've written them down so I can't forget. I probably still might do. What one person's asked me, is there any long-term effects of using bicarbonate on the koi due to low KH?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's just something that how long I think she'd had it about 2 or 3 years. I think she'd had a koi pond, and she was just getting a bit worried about it. And I'm like, well, I can ask for now. Yeah,
no, as far as I'm aware, it's a very safe product to be using, obviously only for buffering KH and to maintain a stable pH. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing there long term that's going to have any issues. Just if you're having to, is it a soft water area? Do you know?
I'm not 100% because it's different to mine, but I think so.
Yeah. So it is going to be pretty common that you're going to need to potentially keep dosing just to maintain it. I think I touched on this last week. What might help if it is a case that it's soft water and she's having to use a lot of it to keep buffering, it might be worth using something like oyster shells in a trickle tower or something like that, just to absorb some of the free acid in there. So yeah, that'll be worth considering. But yeah, no issues using bicarb at all.
And then another one, because I'm getting some more Koi Wholesale as well. It's like say your ponds are sat at say 16 degrees, for example, at the minute, and
at
10 degrees. Oh, why is she doing that? Stringing me, even though I told her I'm doing a live. Your pond's at 10, mine's at 10. Would you still do it, or would you only do it where it's on like a 1 or 2 degrees different?
Right, so if you're talking, you're buying from a pond that's at 16 and moving them to a pond that's 10.
But no, I'm just saying, would you sort of say that sort of temperature range is a bit much and only have a degree or 2 degrees difference?
Yeah, so it depends really which way you're going. If you're going from hot to cold, that's never really advisable. You want a relatively small difference at that, and that it's going to be a real difference between sort of how hot you go. So, I mean, if you was in the range of say 14, 16 going downwards, you're going to want to be more careful on that basis. Or likewise, if you're say going from 22 to 20, you're probably not going to notice much difference because it's still relatively warm, so the immune system is going to be kicking pretty well. But yeah, from what you're talking, 16 to 10, that's not one I'd entertain in the slightest. No, that's going to cause quite a lot of stress.
I thought the same. I just thought, as giving you a rough, like 6 degrees too much, because there ain't really much out there. I wouldn't do it anyway, but I prefer it at least at a degree. What's another one?
Not got to be too accurate. Not got to be too accurate, by the way. We're not talking, you need to be an absolute degree. It just really does depend. When the environment's cold, you've got to be more careful, because obviously if the fish get upset and distressed from the temperature change going downwards, depending on what temperature they're going into, is going to depend on how efficiently their immune system's working to overcome any problems. Yeah. It's not just temperature alone, because one of the most common parasites known from temperature shock is white spot. But we've done trials in the past where we've used severe temperature shock to try and bring it out, and it's not happened. Not much of anything happened. So as much as the books will tell you one thing, you can't always expect that's going to happen with a big temperature change going down, but other things might happen as well. Putting that fish in your environment, you've got the stress of the journey they've got to overcome, which depending how long that is will have an effect. Mixing in your new environment might cause some issues. So all these things need factoring in as well, because if you put that fish in, it might be absolutely fine with the temperature change. Mixing that environment, not like it, and one group of the fish sort of take a turn for the worse, without any decent heat, you're not going to have their immune response to help recover them from it very quickly. Yeah. So you just got to be more careful when it's cooler, and to be honest, you'll get away with more when it's warmer in general, probably even a bigger gap, because even if you go into relatively warm temperature still, their immune system's going to help overcome a lot of stress.
Put something outside.
Okay, sorry, Jim. And then something that I saw on Facebook a few days ago. In your experience, have you ever seen a koi sleep at the bottom and then somebody go to the pond in the morning to wake them up? I thought it was a bit of a myth thing, but apparently seen a few comments about it on Facebook.
Yeah, not to wake them up. I mean, generally that's going to happen if there's something wrong in those circumstances. The presence of someone going to the pond is likely to snap them out of it, whatever it is. I've spoke about this in sort of like when you are carrying out observation of your pond, which is very important. You've got to be mindful that their behaviour changes when they sense you through vibration or whatever it is that's going on. Your presence at the side of the pond, where typically they probably know that they're going to get fed or something like that. So yeah, I would say in that case, it's not the fish sleeping. There's something wrong there. It might be that it's cold and that they're down at the bottom and then they come up when they sense it, or it might be that the fish is actually ill and you just sort of snap them out of it and they come up. So either way, there's something not 100%.
It was just something that I saw on Facebook and I thought it's a little bit odd. I know that sometimes they do lay dormant at bottom, but I thought, but sometimes that's what I do. Like you said, sometimes you go down and you feed to be observed from that way, but sometimes I sort of step back a bit so they don't know fully that you're there. So you've got a different observation skills, haven't you?
Yeah, really important time to get them that when you've got an idea of their true sort of behaviour.
The only thing is you won't like my filter setup, so I won't even get into that.
Why would I not like it? I don't judge anybody. Go on, what we got going on?
A 12,000 multi-base system.
Yeah.
But I know you don't really prefer
preferences, but they do the job, don't they? Ultimately, they do the job. It's just different. When we're talking about getting peak performance out of something and wish list and what I want, they don't tick all the boxes, but they do the job and they did the job for a very long time. It's just for me how efficiently they do it. But yeah, hats off. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
It's a weekly thing, but I don't mind getting my hands mucky with it. What other things are there? Oh yeah, something that I saw as a question, and I had your other one. Will you be doing another Koi Wholesale calendar for next year? So I've got your old one, but you didn't do one for this year. I'm like, oh no.
To be fair, yes, we'll be working on it, and it's going to be amongst the Koi Talk merchandise as well. To be honest, but yeah, it just wasn't. It's been such a busy winter. It sort of got to a point where I said, "Oh shit, we haven't done a calendar," and by that point, it was too late. And all the stress and hassle we'd had with the one the year before, I didn't want to go through that again. So. Yes.
No, I don't think we've got them March or April time. So you've already missed 4 months there, haven't you?
Yeah, it was the whole thing turned, went the wrong way a little bit. But no, we'll be back with that one next year.
And then another one that I see on a few things. In winter, your pond's unheated, so say it's got down to about 6 degrees. Would you still put a little bit of food in, just like maybe 5 or 6 pellets, like once a week, or not bother?
You've really typically at that temperature, I probably wouldn't be bothering, but you have got to gauge it on the fish's behaviour. The issue you've got is how dormant your filter system's going to be. You can't just switch your filters on and off. The koi will respond at 5 or 6 degrees, a bit of a sunny day. They're probably all going to start venturing towards the surface looking, but that filter is still fast asleep. So that's where you've got to really be careful. All of a sudden, you don't completely hook up your parameters and you're in a situation where you're dealing with ammonia and nitrite spikes and no temperature to get you out of it. So, yeah, personally, I'd be more inclined just to leave them alone.
And then there was one that somebody asked that were where is it now? Somebody were on about managing ammonia and nitrite levels in a pond that's not quite established yet. What would you sort of recommend them do? So they're basically going for the new pond syndrome.
Yeah, so you've got two methods. I mean, one great way of really skipping through new pond syndrome is to raise the temperature and just sort of get on with it. Keep a nice trickle of food going in, manage the ammonia, water changes, all good bacterias and things like that. But to do that, you want to be 24, 25 degrees, so it really cycles through that stage really quickly. In a normal pond, unheated, you're going to have to be a lot steadier. So yeah, I mean, have a good bacteria on hand is always a good one. EA filter gel, Bacter Plus, all really good products. The PSB bacteria as well is a really good one for handling ammonia and getting you through. And yeah, you've just got to be steady with it. The nitrite is going to take a lot longer to settle down than in the ammonia in a new pond. That's always the case. You might need a bit of tinkering along the way, but you just want to get that through that ammonia cycle as fast as possible. You can help handle the nitrite by the addition of salt in the water, but ammonia is nasty stuff, does a lot of damage pretty quickly. So yeah, when it spikes, good bacteria on hand. I'm not a fan of getting too heavy with the water changes unless it's extreme, because I think that can upset, if you're not careful, you can upset the balance in the pond with the fresh water. If you're doing too much, I tend to like the body of water itself to sort of stabilize. And like I say, adding good bacteria in there to help seed it up is probably going to be your best option.
Because when I went through it, I added a pond bomb. Well, I did a 20% water change, and then I added the pond bomb, and that seemed to sort of steadied it out to where then eventually the numbers then started being back to normal again.
Yeah, that's it. Again, bomb's quite useful. Anything with them kinds of bacteria that we know are effective products, we're going to be wanting to use those. I'm always just cautious to be hitting, because it's the ecosystem that you build in that you need, and all the bacteria to stabilize, and the addition of fresh water too much. If you get it wrong, especially, don't dechlorinate properly, anything like that, you're going to be adding more problems in there than good, really. So, leave it be as much as possible.
That's the other thing that when I was starting to build my pond, there were someone that I last knew, and they were like, "What are you buying a 3-stage dechlorinator for?" We got told just to, what was it they did? They put it over the pergola with the hose, and then just let the hose go in. I'm like, oh my Lord. I don't, there's just so much where it's a bit like that. I've always used a 3-stage dechlorinator, but then people to say, well, what are you buying that for? We just use a hose, put it over pergola and let it drop in. I'm like,
that's absolutely not one I'd be advocating at all. There's too much in water, full stop now. In fact, even one while you're on that, because this is one I saw the news post, I'm just getting it on my phone, and instantly sort of pinged it over to Jos, because we've been talking a lot about heavy metals in water and the problems that they cause. And this, I can't remember what it was we've found. Here we go. So this was on the BBC, and levels toxic PFAs in water. Just like something else again thrown up. They're on about the troubles these are causing for human consumption and the safe levels. So never mind what this sort of stuff's going to be doing to our fish. And we don't know, how effective carbon blocks are at removing this sort of stuff. They're not particularly great at removing heavy metals. So to be using no purification at all is suicide in my opinion. Yeah, certainly not one to be done. But just remember as well, you don't actually need to have a pure, there are liquid dechlorinators that work really well and very good at detoxifying metals at the same time.
It's when I saw it was sort of red flags to me, because I'm like, you don't know what's in your water anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry,
interestingly, a common misconception I see with liquid-based dechlorinators as well. You've got to treat, even if you only fill up, if it's 1,000-gallon ponds and you're topping up 100 gallons of water, you've got to treat 1,000 gallons.
You've got to treat for the full pond,
unless the water, because I have seen it's something I used to get asked all the time at the shop as well. Now, unless that 100 gallons is isolated somewhere, and it's the treatment is used on it before it's added to the pond. Unless that's the case, you need to treat the whole 1,000 gallons of water every time you've topped up to make sure it's dechlorinated effectively.
Well, but you're better off just doing that for a peace of mind, rather than just that, like you said, unless you've just added that, you might as well just do it all for peace of mind, aren't you?
Yeah, they're relatively cheap treatments to buy, so I see no harm in it.
And to be honest, I thought you might have took a bit longer to answer them, because that's basically most of them.
Fair play, mate.
People are just too scared to ask questions.
I know. It's tough, but no, fair play. Well, thanks for coming on, buddy. And we've always got plenty of questions back here, so I'm going to sit and burn through some of them now, because people take a lot of time out to leave them in comments, so we'll work through. But I wish you all the best with your vlogging and your koi keeping journey, and hopefully we'll maybe get you back in future when you've got a few more questions.
Well, hopefully people ask me more questions, and we'll just see how it goes, won't we? Because at least hopefully there's been 2 of us on now, so hopefully more people will get the confidence to go in front of the camera rather than just typing it on a computer.
Yeah, you see, it's not that scary, is it? You've relaxed into it.
Well, it's one of that you've just got to get into it, haven't you? First few videos, you're a bit, and then you just get into it.
Fair play. Happy days. Well, thanks for coming on, mate. And I'm going to crack on with some of these other questions now. Right, folks. Oh, Steve's already on it. Look at that. I was just picking one out myself. I'd seen there. How do I bring down pH levels? Gone sky high. Your best thing is to get some pH down treatments, which are the right sort of acids to do the job. Go and grab one from your dealer and get that in and get it brought down slowly as possible. But just remember, pH, it's all about gradual change. Don't be doing anything too quickly or trying to get it down too much. You know, if it's gone up but it's stabilized, that's not going to be as damaging as a swinging pH. So don't panic too much. Right, I've had a question here from Lee Hadfield. Koi Soldier, great YouTube channel. Lee, you know, you're clearly watching, so I'm going to be expecting you on here sometime soon with a list of questions. Hi guys, great show. Really posing these questions. Can you explain what Kiwa and Sashi is? Yes, absolutely. So we'll leave that on actually. Kiwa, in a nutshell, is the back edge of the scale. So I'll try and get it on this. So yeah, that's the way. Where black goes to white there, that is the Kiwa. And the front edge there, where black goes to white, you see there's a bit of black shadow in there. That's the Sashi, which Sashi is normally a representation of colour that's sat deeper in the skin, in the more elastic layer that tends to move when the fish grow. So Kiwa is the back edge. We've got two main types. We've got Marizome, which it basically forms like a round scallop, and Kamisori Kiwa, which sort of cuts across the scales a little bit. Sashi's a more complex one. So with Kiwa in general, you want that relatively really refined from a young age. It is one of the differentials between, you know, quality, a low quality, good quality, and a high quality koi is the quality of the Kiwa. It is something that will move and change a little bit as they get bigger. So obviously, because the pigment will grow and stretch, what you can tend to find is like with Marizome Kiwa, for instance, it can look a little bit flatter when the koi is younger, and then as they grow and the color stretches, might stay the same. And when eventually you get a period of contraction, normally when the fish get bigger, that can be what starts to pull the Marizome into place, so it scallops across the scales properly. Got to remember, there's a lot of movement in pigmentation in general, and you're not going to get anything absolutely perfect at a young age unless, you know, them few fish that are like that are generally destined for a show circuit if they've got all the other qualities, but they might not have a particularly great future ahead of them. Sashi, yeah, Sashi is a great indicator. For me, it's one of the mechanisms I will use to understand the quality of Benny and the potential stability of Benny, to be honest with you. So because it's the colour in the deeper layer, the skin that grows and moves, you're going to expect to see Sashi in a young fish that has got good depth and elasticity in the colour, for the fish to be able to grow and maintain a level of quality with the Benny pigmentation. So yeah, what you really want to be looking for is you don't want it too thick. About a scale depth overall for most lineages is what you want to be seeing. Now this will change, and it can change according to the lineages. So a typically sort of, you know, typical sort of Benny that's a bit softer in its coloration, not too fierce, about a scale depth. Very important with Sashi that I want to see consistency. So if you've got a 3-step Kwaku, for example, that's normally going to be 3 sort of areas, 2 or 3 areas there for Sashi to be visible. Now, what you don't want is an area where, you know, say it's all that depth, one area extends up by that amount or deeper than all the others that are on the body, because typically 95% of the time that area won't actually recover or tighten as the fish gets bigger, and it'll always remain there. So yeah, them troublesome patches you want to be very, very careful with, to be honest. So consistency, I'm not, you know, not completely hung up on depth, but consistency of it is most important, because a consistent Sashi has a chance to refine. If you've got it at all different sort of depths across the different dams of the pattern, you're going to be in trouble as that grows. The likelihood is you're not going to get that to actually recover. And then, yeah, it's just a matter of growing it out. Just coming back to Benny types, I do tend to find that the real deep, intense Bennies from lineages like Nogami, for instance, some Dainichi ones can carry a lot thicker sashi because it tends to look a little bit more prominent because of the depth of the colour when the fish are younger. And I do see it in them fish that it goes deeper than you'd expect to see in other lineages, such as Matsue, for example, which is a relatively soft Benny. So yeah, I give a little bit more leeway to those deeper Bennies because over the years I've seen that tends to be the case, but they do also tighten up as they get bigger. It's just because the depth of the pigment is absolutely insane with some of them Kwaku bloodlines. And yeah, just coming back to Kiwa, again, it does change. So sometimes as well, you might get the odd scale where the pigmentation's, not quite there or not 100%, it's a little bit softer in the edges of the scale. Again, that can be quite normal because it can be the colour actually filling in to the scale as well. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's where you're at with that one. Oh, go on, I'm right thinking that the sashi Benny should not be more than one scale. So yeah, that's obviously just what I've come to there. Yes, depth is important. You don't want it too deep, but pay more attention to the consistency of it across the whole pattern. Because, like I say, troublesome areas or difference in areas, or where you've got just one part of the sashi even on one area that's a little bit thicker, that's all indicators that that's possibly not going to refine to the highest level. When you've got it consistent across every bit, you've got a better chance of getting that to perform. So yeah, that's it, Lee. Get in touch. Is it true? Well, that's absolutely outrageous. Anyway, Steve, what else have we got? Right, become a UK dealer. Well, obviously you need somewhere to trade from, first of all, and you will also need to get licensed from your local authorities with your pet shop license. Other than that, I would say you need a lot of courage. Yeah, you need to be slightly insane as well. And yeah, obviously capital to get into it as well, as with any business really. But in the nuts of it, you need facilities and you need to get licensed. Dealers can come to Japan with me. That is something that we do, or likewise I sort it remotely, but obviously a lot of what we do is from my facility here in the UK because of the amount of convenience that it offers and what we've got going on there. So I hope that answers that one for you. Right, Steve, I've just seen one here calling me. I will throw on. What sort of size would you look to attain to or what the Japanese breeders look to attain? Right, that's an interesting one because I think it's probably quite important not to get too hung up on this unless you're looking to really grow jumbo fish. But we've got to remember it's not always necessarily the end size is more governed by genetics than it is size for age. Genetics will help produce a bigger fish for the age, but likewise, fish from jumbo genetics, if they're raised in an environment that's not, conducive to good growth, they're not going to hit the sizes that they could potentially do in a better environment. So, yeah, and this you play a massive part. The best example I can give you right now is the Marseille Heotsoris that I raised last year. You may well have seen them on YouTube already. So typically, Marseille Nisai, well, the Tosai are always the same, sort of 12 to 15 cm, 15 to 18 cm around there. Mine were 12 to 15 cm when they arrived. Marseille Nisai in Japan are typically no bigger than 30 to 35 cm. They might do some a bit bigger, some years getting 40 to 45 cm. I raised them indoors in a much smaller environment to what he does in Japan. And those fish at Nisai were 45 up to 50 cm. And by, the full 12 months, I was actually sorting them out the other day, we've got them up to 58 cm. So, in that case, the size for the age really is not important there. The lineage, his Heotsori can get big. He's got monstrous examples at his place. It's just the different raising techniques. I raise them very intensively. They've got there quicker than he would get them there necessarily the way he's raising them. But the end goal, they're going to get to the same size pretty much, unless they're really, really stunted for the, them first sort of 2 or 3 years of their life. You're going to have a big drop off there in size potential. But other than that, the end size is going to be the same. Doesn't really matter how quickly you get there. And then that brings it into other questions of, the intensive raising. I've seen it happen. It can cause health conditions sometimes. When you were eating 5-year-old fish, it's in crazy numbers size wise. It's all depend on how they're raised and what the environment is. And whereas you've got breeders, and it's a methodology I like myself, where it's a solid 6 months raising, not 12 months, so not being grown through winter as well. They've got a resting period, and you can still get them to the end goal. Just it takes a bit longer, but what you can do in that is create a stronger fish and actually retain the quality for more years to come after it. So yeah, that's sort of gone off on a tangent from the original question, but I mean, yeah, size for age. I mean, tosai, a typical sort of standard size tosai in Japan is sort of 12 to 15 cm. What was originally called a jumbo tosai was sort of 20 to 25 cm, and then that progressed to them being much bigger. Whereas now real super jumbo tosai is sort of like 45, 50, and even going beyond that. It's progressing all the time. Nisai, we're still probably seeing different. You've got Nisai from 30, 35 cm on average, probably. Obviously now there's the small Nisai market, which is growing all the time, probably 20 to 25 cm on average. A normal decent size Nisai in Japan, probably 40 to 45 cm. And then, your big Nisai now getting the over 50s, and now some getting over 60s to the extremes, like the Okawa Karashigoi I got offered last year, which was 70 cm at what was about 20 months old at the time. Absolutely crazy. So, yeah, that's a rough guide for you. But I just want to draw people's attention to what I've just said. Size for age, don't get too hung up on it. The genetics and the actual physical parent fish it's come from are going to be bigger governing factors to eventual size, rather than the size of the fish for a given age. And what breeders will tend to do as well. They roughly know, they can see the fish growing. There's always the odd freak that you get. I remember seeing one at NND some years back with a Sankey lineage. This one fish was just a monster. You could see his bone structure was just so much bigger than everything else. And yeah, it was a solid, sort of nearly 10 centimeters bigger than the average. And that was a fish that actually at that point got kept for a parent fish, because clearly genetically much stronger than the others. So I hope that answers that one. What else have we got, Steve? Yeah, obviously you're not here for me to go backwards and forwards with that one, Ryan, but try something different. So obviously I presume here parasites have been ruled out. That's going to be completely important to know whatever the cause is. If it's the only fish in the pond, so we're not looking at a wider potential bacterial problem. Obviously parasites, you need to make sure there's none of them present, then possibly try something different topically if you've ruled all that out. Obviously make sure there's no dead scales inside, because that's going to just keep the scales sat up. So any dead ones that feel rough like sandpaper need to be removed, and then possibly try a different topical treatment. So I was always a fan of Tamidine, or you can just use an iodine, but Tamidine always seemed quite good. Worth anesthetizing it, just drying it off a little bit, not too much, getting it on so it gets a good good adhesion to it, and get it back in the pond. But yeah, other than that, there's not much more you can do with that one. It's just a few raised scales. Cool. What else have we got? Varieties. How do we see who's breeding what? Yeah, to be honest with you, you've got me there with the Golden Magic from Sakai. Not heard of that one yet myself. Golden Dragon from Oyama. Yeah, that'd be quite an interesting one. If I remember right, that's the Deutz Kawari Goi with the full scalage on them. Look pretty impressive. Can you just get that back on screen, Steve, to refresh yourself? Yeah, so who is breeding what? It's tough, to be honest with you. It's on us as an industry, to be honest, to get that information out to you guys as much as possible. But yeah, even from my side of the fence, trust me, it's hard to keep up with because we are in an age where Kawari Goi are sort of ruling the roost a little bit. Breeders are trying to make all sorts of different stuff because it is, Kawari is such a huge part of the market, such demand there, they're fetching such serious prices at the minute. Then obviously a lot of breeders wanted to jump on the bandwagon and try and create all these different fish. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is as soon as something's really serious, you're going to hear about it. Like golden corn, just as an example, they were being worked on for a long time, and only really, the UK market got hit with them last year, but they've been in existence for quite a while before that. So yeah, to be honest, with the Koi Talk venture, it's what we're looking to get into as much as possible when we move and bring on our online side in a little bit more. But yeah, it really is on us as an industry just to keep you guys informed as much as possible with what knowledge we do get hold of. Obviously, for one person alone, getting across absolutely everything going on is difficult. Like I say, so much does change all the time as well. So yeah, that's as much as I can offer you on that one. Yeah, pond returns. Now, I am very much a fan of just one directional flow. I'm not into this whole. You've got two things here. Obviously, you can look at what's the best, most efficient design for a pond, and what I feel is the best, most efficient design for the koi themselves. And for the koi themselves, I like one directional flow. Big preference to surface area, so sort of longer ponds if possible, sort of rectangular shaped. And I would choose to have all my flow at one end. So shower, returns, aeration, and returns. Where you sit them's up to you, above surface, below. It really don't make too much difference. Obviously, above the surface, you can take advantage of getting some extra aeration in if you get the return set up properly, or even return through a spray bar and get some extra degassing done there as well. But yeah, the one method for that is because I like to have the sort of graduation through the current in the pond. So with Tosai, it doesn't really make too much of a difference because they're so active. But as the fish get older, I think it's important to have a stiller area in the pond where the fish can escape heavy aeration. So yeah, even aerated bottom drains, I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest with you. A lot of this stuff, the motion of the air and the current in the pond is all designed at obviously ultimately getting the waste to the drain. But what you tend to find is in a busy pond anywhere, there's a lot going on. It's never too much of a problem. But yeah, that one directional flow is always my choice. There'll be debate out there. None of them are sort of wrong or right, to be honest with you. It will come down to preference. That's my preference on what I feel is best for the fish, developing body properly. And yeah, giving a nice area for feeding as well, so they feel relaxed at feeding time. So that's what I go with. See what else we've got lined up. What age do koi stop growing? Interesting. That is really going to be, age will play a part, but I think earlier genetics are going to play a part in that one more than age, to be honest with you, because I've seen it, there's some lineages, the fish literally sort of get to floating around 78, 80 centimetre mark and boom, it just stop. And then it's all about managing the body from there on in. So yeah, if the capability is there in the lineage, you'll find things that you can keep eking a bit out of them. But yeah, generally genetics and the lineage is going to govern that one more so than the age. I think we're getting through a fair few of these tonight. Where does Hoshikin rate in the league table of Japanese breeders? Oh, nice question. Big fan of Hoshikin. I'm quite good friends with Katsuyuki-san. He's an absolutely great guy. His Kohaku lineage is one of the top for me. It's been around for a long time. It's derived from the old Tomoin lineage, which was a really great Kohaku bloodline. So he's got that as his primary sort of base set still. and also uses Sensuke through other sets. So 2 phenomenal lineages, but yeah, absolutely great place. Serious kohaku. They get jumbo size. They win awards at koi shows. If you're asking me, he's in the top league. I mean, take Dainichi, Sakai, probably Momotaro out of it. Them 3 guys are in a sort of league of their own, to be honest with you. But he's that next high level tier of breeder for me, where you're in with Maridos, Matsue's, Hoshikin, Nogami, all them kind of breeders. Absolutely top. He's great fish. I've got some of his Tosai growing on at the minute, and you just see it, quality genetics. These things are absolutely flying. It's effortless growth for them. And one thing I like about Hoshikin, he really is, he makes some really stunning patterns, which is always nice, when you've got that body and the Benny quality that he produces, and he throws in some of the patterns that he does as well. They're great. He's absolute top breeder for Tancho, makes some of the best Tanchos I've seen, to be honest with you, and they can get size. And then Showa, Showa was his hobby, as he called it, but my God, he makes them, pretty awesome. He's a big fan himself of Kindai Showa, which is what you see a lot in the line, but great fish he's producing there. So he's a serious one. Let's see what else we've got lined up. Or are we running out, Steve? Probably not. Shiro Muji, I have 2 from no. So colour loss is obviously quite a common thing with a lot of Tosai, to be honest with you. This is one of the things where it's really important, coming back to the earlier question I answered about Kiwa and Sashi. Learning about Benny is really, really important. If you're growing Tosai, you need to look for the danger signs and also know what are the positive signs, i.e., like the Sashi, great indicator of future stability. When you can read what's going on there, you will minimize colour loss a fair bit, but even still, Tosai are unpredictable. There's been fish in the past which I've absolutely, been completely confident they were going to excel. Then for whatever reason, they just fell apart. So it's a risky business. You can't particularly pin it too much to any given breeder. I think it's more important to maybe, take a look in the mirror on that one and double down on the knowledge, studying the Benny types and all the rest of it. But anything like that, Sankey as well, Showa, it can all happen. And I mean, Deutz fish, Deutz go Sankey and Deutz fish in general, absolute pain in the arse, because I lose, at that point. It really is about learning to read real, tiny, small details in the Benny, because I don't have Sashi as an indicator there to tell me what's going on with the coloration. So, I think learning necessary on that one, just to refine your eye on what you're picking. And that's why it's always good to have photographic records as well, when you're raising fish, because you can look back and possibly then see, a year down the line, what might have gone wrong versus a fish that was a success and things like that. So, nice question, that, Paul. So lowest levels of salt with FMG mixture is absolutely fine. You've just got to be very careful when you're using base formalin on its own, which not a lot of people do with salt, because it can cause a bit of a nasty reaction. But when it's in a mixture, a bit of a different beast. I wouldn't be using it with really high salt, but with sort of trace backgrounds, 0.3 or below, I wouldn't be too concerned at all with that one. But if you're just using formalin itself, got to throw a bit more caution to that one. Single colour koi, thinking Mitsubaki again. What are the main things to look for? Absolutely lighter. All of these varieties typically, as we're looking here, are going to be darkening with age. Absolutely no doubt about that. So you want to be looking for these things as pale as possible when they're younger, because with most of them, they're going to want to be dark. Sumi is going to want to be pushing through the skin. So yeah, pay attention to, don't be too worried about getting the real definitive Mitsubamon on them when they're too early. Obviously, the Fukurin's going to come as well. So yeah, the lighter the better. Certainly with like Akamatsuba, you get them too dark, too young. As a Tosai, by the time it's Nisai, it's just going to look absolutely trashed. So, and people obviously tend to avoid the lighter looking ones because yes, they don't look as attractive when they're younger. But if you're in this for the long game, it's what you need to be doing. Asagi are exactly the same. Asagi is one of my grow on fish this year. Everyone's starting to take the mickey at me a little bit because I've actually seemed to have them absolutely everywhere. But I actually, on my selection video, we're coming to the next one of that soon, and people see the progression from very young Tosai Asagi to where they're at now and how much they have darkened already, even though they're still light. They're just so much darker than where they were. And that darkening progression is going to keep happening year on year. It's Sumi sat under the skin wanting to push up. So, if you get an Asagi or Akamatsuba too dark, too young, it's probably going to be black and an absolute mess by the time it's 2 or 3 years old, and you're probably going to want to move it on. Whereas if you go for that lighter one younger, in my opinion, then you're getting better value for money. It might not be the most attractive fish, but trust me, 9 times out of 10, it's going to darken. So, yeah, lighter the better. The metallic Mitsubas doesn't apply quite as much. Ginmetsubas, your metallic yellow and orange Kinmetsubas as well. Again, you don't want to go too dark, too young, but you do want to look for a little bit more refinement in them at sort of 2 and 3 years old because they don't actually tend to change that much. So, yeah, that's the most that I can offer on that one for you. Move on. Right, Steve, get yourself on camera. Come on, you're not avoiding that one.
I'm here now. Here I am.
Steve, when is Koi Talk available outside the UK?
This is the big question that everyone's waiting on, Rick. There's a lot of demand for it. Basically, we've just got to set up the website so that we can provide the international shipping. So it's something we're working on. It should be set up, I would think, in the next week.
Fantastic. There we go.
So there we go. You heard it here.
It is a big question. We were getting absolutely flooded with that one at the minute. So yeah, it'd be great to start getting the mag out to some different countries. I'm sure they'll also gain a lot of value from it. But yeah, Steve's working hard on that one, guys. So yeah, fingers crossed will not be too much longer. Right, what else have we got? Are all koi susceptible to secondary Benny, or is it the lineage, and is that the same shimmies? So if I start with shimmies from my experience tend to be more prone depending upon the Benny type. So what you tend to find is the darker red Bennies tend to attract shimmies a little bit more, seeing that quite commonly, whereas the softer Bennies tend to avoid them. However, to throw another spanner in the works, I've seen different water types completely throw that out, where even a soft Benny Koraku that might keep great in most waters start throwing shimmies. So the environment can play its part as much as the Benny type. I don't think it's particularly linked to a particular breeder. The only link there is, the type of Benny the breeder produces potentially being part of the problem. And secondary he. Again, yes, you might tend to find in the real rich Benny lineages, this can be more of a problem. Again, just because of how intense the pigment is. And yes, some breeders can be more prone to it, but again, diet can play its part here. Some, nasty sort of false color enhancers can do it. And yet the environment, that can also play its part, seeing it happen with all of them. So off the top of my head, there's not one particular breeder I could think of that has, secondary heat problems or shimmy problems. There's just a lot more to it than that. So yeah, if it's something you're tending to find happen a lot in your pond, you might want to investigate a little bit further on what's going on in the water. Or eventually, you will find fish that do keep in the environment that you've got. So you just got to do the rounds on that one, unfortunately. What do you feed your fish? That one's not come up for a long time, has it? I exclusively feed Sakikari. Don't use anything else. I don't even use the normal Ikari foods anymore, to be honest with you. yeah, it's the top for me. Absolutely superb. I have incredible results with it, and just because of how good the results are, really do struggle to come to using anything else. Do I have an opinion on JPD food? No, not particularly. Not used it in any great deal. When I have, it didn't particularly wow me all that much. So yeah, I never continued using it. That's my opinion on that one. So yeah, out there again, Sakikari for me all the way. If you are looking and you sort of put off by the price, this is a little tip I threw out a while back, and actually, there was some amazing results came from this. Break it down to price per kilo across the different sizes. So you can buy sake, I think, in a 2, 5, and 15 kilo. So if you break each of them down price per kilo and compare it against some equivalents on that basis, rather than the initial upfront cost, I think in a lot of cases you might get a bit of a shock that the stigma of, oh, it's too expensive might disappear again when you break it down like that. I know from when we did speak about this, some of the research and things that were coming through in some of the groups and stuff I'm in, was that I think Tetra Pond sticks actually work out far more expensive than Sakikari, which was just mind blowing because I won't let them anywhere near me fish. So worth just looking into that in a bit more detail. And other than that, that's where I'm at. It's a really important part of what I do in the whole raising and keeping of koi. But there are other great foods out there that people will have experience with. So it's worth talking to friends, dealers as well. But, just see how committed they are to the food and, how often they're using it and in what circumstances before you go taking them recommendations. Moving on then. Advantage, disadvantage, 1 or 2 bottom drains when you should consider 2. When the pond's a bit too big, to be honest with you. It's all going to come down to the side and also what system you're looking to feed. Obviously, you can only pull so much water through a single drain. So if you need a particular turnover rate and, 1 drain is not adequate enough, you're going to need to use 2 or potentially more. But in the 3,500 gallon ponds, I think they're 20 by 8 feet, and they've only got a single bottom drain. Now, possibly with the length of that, in hindsight, I probably would prefer 2 drains in there, to be honest with you. But it does work with a 1, so you'd have no issues there. But I think around that size and beyond, you need to be looking for 2, possibly 3. And then tying it back to what flow rates you need, because ultimately that's going to be the deciding factor. God, ripping through them tonight. I've got a question for quite some time. When feeding using auto feeder, how do you control the skimmer aerated drainage through? Right, yes, very difficult to, unless you've got timers and different programs running. To be honest with you, which all seems like a giant pain in the arse. To be honest with you, my old keep it simple mantra doesn't really tie into this one all that well. All you can obviously try and do is position the feeder where the air might, pin it to one wall away from the skimmer. Or the best solution I've used with people in the past is to create a bit of a feeding frame. You can just use floating pipe frame across one end of the pond or an area of the pond where the feed is going to land. Make it big enough. I did this with a friend of mine some years back. So we made a frame that was the whole width of the pond and with a nice section, so all the fish could get in there comfortably. So you don't get a crazy big chagoi sticking its head in a small feeding frame and absolutely dominating. But that solved that one, an absolute treat. Other than that, you need to be like I say, using timers to try and switch. Either a skimmer pump off or the air pumps to control the environment while the feeder's going off. But all quite complex and more than likely still going to result with food where you don't want it. So I hope that answers that one. No, I don't breed any koi myself. To be honest with you, I find the whole process fascinating. I've learned a lot about it over the years. But what I did also learn from being in Japan and going through the selection process is it is a giant pain in the arse. You need a lot of infrastructure, a lot of fish get thrown away, serious amounts of investment, time investment as well. And to be honest, it's just not where I want to be overall, to be honest with you. hats off to all the guys that do it, you know, in Japan and outside of Japan as well, because for all them reasons, it is really, really tough to produce that level of fish. You know, when I've got the Japanese, you know, with all their experience working on 0.1% of spawnings on average of being fish kept, then you break that down further, probably 10% of that 0.1% being the best fish that year, and then, you know, another year later it's just another 10%. You can see from a huge spawning, you know, the potential of, you know, top jumbo examples coming out of that is just so small. And yeah, personally, I enjoy the whole process of you know, going, sourcing the fish, finding them, cutting all that, you know, mass volume out of the way and getting what I need, and then doing what I want to do with them from that point onwards. But like I say, hats off to all the guys that do it, because it's a serious amount of dedication. Have we got any left, Steve? Yes. What temperature would you start feeding Sakikari growth? So in general, I would be looking at 20 degrees or above. You can feed it safely at 18. I wouldn't have any concerns about that. You're just going to have to control the amount, because as with any growth food, if you feed it at that, it can be a way to manipulate body volume quite quickly. So if you're feeding the growth food at 18 degrees, very, very quickly, you're going to get the fish bulking really well. If that's not what you're looking for, I'd probably move 20 and above before you start doing that. Typically, if you're around that, you know, below 20, I'd probably look at using Saki balance, unless you specifically want to bulk them up. Then by all means use the growth, but I certainly wouldn't be looking to use Saki growth below 18, because there's just too much fat in it for that. I don't know. That, to be honest with you, would be yeah, a huge amount of work, hassle. And personally, I'm happy with, you know, that the diet they get in is providing them absolutely everything that they need. But I get from a hobbyist perspective, you know, it's great to add them treats and things like that. No issues with it at all. It's just from a commercial perspective, yes, it would also, you know, cost a small fortune with the amount of fish. And yeah, you know, we're all focused on very strict feeding regimes that are controlled with a food that I believe is giving them everything that they need anyway. So that's my only reason for not doing that. Yeah, last couple, Steve. Thanks, Shirley. Yeah, fingers crossed. I've got an absolute army of fish going in. So excited to see what we can do with that, both my fish and customers' fish. So yeah, fingers crossed for everybody involved in that one. So yeah, just going to get one more question if we've got one there, Steve. What are your tips on feeding colour food, and does it affect shiroji? There's always a chance of colour food affecting shiroji. It depends on the quality of the colour food and what the actual ingredients are to promote the colour enhancement. So pure cultured spirulina, the really high grade stuff, has the least amount of impact on shiroji. But even still, when you feed it at high levels, it will tint it. You're not going to get shiroji to its absolute maximum level while you're feeding colour food. But you have to question, obviously, why you're doing it. So for me, when I'm using it in the height of summer, while the temperatures are up and the benny's stretching because the fish are growing and the colour's softening up a lot anyway. So I'm using it at that point to push up the benny and keep the colour development while everything else is going on. And in all fairness, you know, I don't give a monkeys about shiroji at that time of year. It's all about growth and the other colour development. And then obviously when it comes to winter is when I start look to do conditioning. But very quickly, you know, unless it's something that really fouls up the skin, I tend to find very quickly when they come off a Saki colour and I remove it completely. And even when I remove the growth as well, it really does just fall away and you get that shiroji back really, really quickly. So yeah, hope that helps on that one. Yeah, I'm flagging a little bit, not gonna lie. Just got back from a little trip to New York with the missus a few days ago, and I think jet lag's got me all at sea. So I'm going to call it a night on that one for today. Thank you all who's joined again and for all your questions. It's quite nice getting ripped through all them, and we'll try and obviously keep that going. And yeah, I'll be back next week with more of this. So I look forward to seeing you all then.